children and family minister coordinator person here at St. Thomas's. And I'm just going to put in a quick shameless plug since I have you all in your ear. If you have any interest in holding babies or teaching small children, hit me up. I've got a place for you. Anyway, I also during the week am a teacher at an elementary school here in town, Carolina Park Elementary School. I've taught third grade for the last 5 years, and this year I'm excited to move up to fifth grade to handle a new group of kiddos getting ready to launch off into middle school next year. So excited about that, and I'm really excited this morning to be able to share a little bit of my life experience and my stories with some of you guys, or with all of you all, I guess I should say. So one of the great parts of being a teacher is the ability during the summer to have a little time to recuperate. And one of the things I love to do in the summer is walk on the beach in the morning, typically with some coffee, just relaxing. I was doing that a few weeks ago, and as I was walking down the beach, I saw a father with his little girl coming out of the water. The dad had her by the hand. She was not thrilled at the option of coming out of the water. She looked to be about 3 or 4 and was pulling all of the famous toddler moves, as Jane Pyle, my dear mother, likes to call it, the sack of potatoes. Just kind of screaming and kicking and pushing the whole way. And as I got closer, I heard the little girl's cries, and she was repeating the same thing over and over again. She kept saying, "I don't need a break. I don't need a break. I don't need a break." You can almost hear her father's words in her voice. "Come on, we need a break. Come on, come out of the water." And as I walked by, it's giving me chills right now. As I walked by, I realized in life I'm that little girl. I don't want to take a break. I don't want help. I have everything all under control. And my life story kind of takes Psalm 121 and shows how God has shown me who He is through that, and the reality of what those words mean and what they mean about who He is. So, I'm just going to start at the beginning. When I was about 4, same age as that little pumpkin on the beach, Mom sent me to a church preschool. And I'm told that it was my cries repeating the invitation from my teacher, "Bring your family to church on Sunday," that got my family to church on Sunday, which is, side note, one of the reasons I do involve myself in children's ministries, because that's what changed the life of my family. So anyway, went to church. From there, I grew up in the church. And as I grew up, I don't know, kind of developed a very works-based faith, a faith that was more centered on me and what I was doing for God than who God is. With that came kind of a really strong sense of independence, where, I couldn't depend on anybody to help me out. I needed to be able to do it myself. And with that independence and with that works-based faith, kind of started building a hard shell around me that kept other people out and kept other people at bay, including God. And that kind of went on for a good long time, I would have to say. So my family moved to South Carolina when I was a freshman in high school. And soon after we moved, I started dealing with some health issues, some pretty chronic things that kind of kept me, away from some of the normal teenagey 14-year-old things. Turns out I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is a digestive disorder, kind of impacts the way you absorb vitamins and leads to exhaustion and inflammation and all sorts of things. So all throughout college and high school, I had times of health and fun and normalcy, and then I had times that weren't so much that. I, missed a couple of semesters in college because I had to drop out and go be in the hospital for a little bit or get something done and all those sorts of things. Until my senior year of college, I finally had some surgery that kind of helped really solve the problem. So, well, at the moment, at the time, it helped solve the problem. So, you know, I would like to stand here and say that, you know, I praise God and it's like, yay, thank you for taking care of me. But instead what I did was hop immediately into student teaching about 6 weeks later after getting out of the hospital, and was just bent and determined to graduate with all my classmates that spring. So again, went right back into that independent, I'm doing this, I'm making this happen, I don't need anybody's help, it doesn't matter. Thankfully, I was feeling well enough at the time to do so. Anyway, 3 years after that surgery, I was in a room, I remember in the Augusta Hospital, where my sister used to work, I'm looking at her, and having a scan, a checkup that I had to do every so often. And for the first time in probably a decade, I looked at the screen and saw what the technician was describing as a healthy colon. And I remember thinking, sitting there thinking, wow, like, really? And just this deep breath of fresh air kind of overwhelmed me. And I remember praying in that moment, because like I said, I knew who God was. Praying, saying, you know, please put this picture in my head. Help me to remember this screen so that I can pull that back up in my mind. Because I know I'll get sick again, I know this is coming back, I know this is going to be more of a struggle, blah, 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 on and on and on. Well, it turns out it wasn't more of a struggle, that in the years after I kind of came to see how God used that surgery to save me from that disease. Now, during all that time, I kind of left this part out, so I'm going to go back. During all that time, this is kind of important. During that time, you know, not only was I asking God for help, but I also developed some questions for him. You know, hey, I notice all my friends, peers are doing all these things, yet I'm over here doing this. What's the deal? Why are we doing? Well, like, hey, and as I mentioned, my works-based faith, according to that, I was doing the right things, so I should be getting my prayers answered and things happening the way that I asked him to. So, that day in that room in that hospital was eye-opening, because not only did I realize that he had used the surgery to heal me, but he had answered my prayer. He had taken it away. He had just done it in a way I wasn't expecting, which is, as I've come to learn, quite typical of him. So if you fast forward a couple of years, in January of 2010, I went to a consultation with a breast surgeon based on the advice of my doctor during a yearly checkup. Was not at all worried about that appointment. I went just under the guise of, hey, I'm just going to see if maybe it might make sense for you to start having mammograms at age 35 instead of 40, just because of some observations we've made in the past, and I'll spare you the details. But I left that office that day after several hours, after having a sonogram and a biopsy there in the office. And in my naive mind, I thought, oh, well, I'll get a call next week and it's fine. It'll be fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. However, the following evening, I got a different kind of call. I was at home and had just gone to the gym, you know, because that's what people do. You go to the gym, you're healthy, you know, which is another reason why clearly I wasn't going to get this phone call, because I took care of myself. So got the phone call from this dear and precious surgeon who I came to love, and letting me know that I actually had ductal carcinoma, which is a type of breast cancer. And again, I would love to tell you all that my immediate response was to get down on my knees and say, Lord, I love you, I trust you, thank you for this challenge. But in reality, what happened was that fierce independence came just raging out of me. I mean, it hadn't in a while. Came roaring right back to the surface. And I literally spent that evening on the phone with the surgeon, with my sister, with my parents, with friends who had come to my home to be there with me, to pray with me, trying to convince everyone that I was fine. I'm fine. I've got this. I've been through health stuff before, it's not a big deal. I don't need your help. It's great. Everything is under control. And I think I really believed that. Until later on that evening, when everyone went home and the phone stopped ringing, and I tried to go to sleep. I knew the next morning I had to be in the surgeon's office at 8 a.m. so we could find out just what we were dealing with. Of course, that evening I made the plan, because I have to have things under control. I was going to go by school first thing in the morning, get the lesson plans together, get the classroom set up. And I look back at all that now and I think, Kathy, come on. Let somebody help you, please. But anyway, that evening, when I was alone in my room, and I had no idea what I was about to find out in the coming weeks. I didn't know what I was dealing with. I realized, hey, this is a health issue that is probably a little bit different than any I've dealt with before, and that this could have some very serious consequences. But I actually got out of bed, and I did get on the floor, and I prayed, asking God to help me get through whatever the next weeks were going to bring, whatever that meant. I tried too hard not to think about what that could mean, and just tried to focus on Him. And that same peace that I felt in that room in the hospital in Augusta just washed over me. And that picture came to mind that I'd asked Him to put in the back of my mind for future reference, it turns out. So I quickly learned in the days that came, sorry y'all, this is my teacher's stance. I quickly learned that my tumor was very small. It had not spread anywhere else. It was removed within 3 weeks of its discovery. And I literally was kind of overcome and marveled at how God had, again, used surgery to save me from a disease. In my mind, I was free and clear of it. I was ready to jump back into life. I had a little bit more of an understanding of God and His love for me a little bit. More reasons to be grateful. I had a lot more empathy for people who go through this suffering of this disease. Also had a little bit of this thing that sometimes is called survivor's guilt, where you look around and you see other people who are suffering and not having as easy go of it, and wondering why. And of course, this brought up some more questions for God. Why is that sweet mother that I sat next to in the radiation room so much sicker than I am? Why is it, on and on and on it goes with the questions. What I was not prepared for after that time was kind of the onslaught of all of the medical interventions that were designed to help prevent me from dealing with any more cancer in the future. I thought I would just step away and, hey, I'm good. We're cancer-free, I'm good to go, let's roll. I think maybe a week or two after the surgery, I met with my oncologist for the first time. And he worked with me to review genetic information from some blood work and from the tumor itself. In a little over a month from that surgery, we determined that I wouldn't need chemo, which was a huge answered prayer. I could get by with some hormone blocking drugs and a round of about 6 weeks worth of radiation. I was also told in several of those meetings that I could not think about having children for at least 5 years. And in all honesty, those conversations, threw any dependency that I had on God at that time out the window. Anything that I had built, that He had built up in me, just kind of went by the wayside. My doing, not His. And it's funny that Shane sang that song this morning, or Shane, because both actually have words in them that are a great descriptor of me. You know, I'm going to run and walk the other way, and that's kind of what happened at this point in life. It kind of hurt to hear that age 35, being single, that I had to wait 5 years to even think about that. I mean, I wasn't even with anyone at the time, so it wasn't really a conversation, but hearing that, okay, you have to be at least 40 before you think about that, really kind of threw me for a loop. Of course, on the outside, I was pretending, oh, everything's fine. I've got all this under control, everything's great. But inside, the question lingered. How could I possibly trust God when my biggest dream in life just got shattered? How was I supposed to do that? So about a year after my diagnosis, I had fallen solidly into this 6-month routine of checkups, scans, mammograms, on and on and on. I was grateful to be watched so closely and thrilled at every appointment that I was told I was fine, everything was great. Great peace of mind. However, after a few years of this new normal, biopsies started getting thrown in as part of these checkups. And it always seemed there was something that didn't look quite right, but wasn't horribly done. So let's wait 6 more months. And you come back. It doesn't look quite right, but we'll wait 6 more months. It's okay. So, I, of course, was pulling the whole independent, I've got this, I'm teaching during the week, I'm doing the thing, I don't need to tell anybody about what's going on, this is not a big deal, it's under control. And my body kind of had other plans. Kind of took over at one point. And I began having irregular heartbeats and palpitations, and high blood pressure, all these things that weren't super scary except for the fact that one of the side effects of this hormone blocking drug that I was on was a pulmonary embolism. And so that led to a whole onslaught of, okay, now we have to check out your heart. So let's go through all of this. More doctors. I think that whole thing ended in a very exciting ambulance ride from work. From work. I'm pointing to a dear friend who I was working with at the time, who I think maybe even saw me getting rolled out on the stretcher, which if you're trying to keep up appearances, that works really well. Down to MUSC to the heart clinic, everything checked out. So it kind of, through process of elimination, we landed on, hey, you're dealing with some anxiety. So of course, in my brains, I can't have anxiety. Anxiety is for people who don't have things under control. I have everything under control. I don't have anxiety. I'm fine, right? On the other hand, my poor little nervous system was completely overwhelmed. And it started triggering some pretty massive flight actions, whatever you want to call it. I remember being in a movie theater with a dear friend, and about 30 minutes in, I just had to get out of there. I didn't even say bye to her. Grabbed my bag and ran to the car, out. Out. So, during that time, a friend convinced me to go to a worship service with her. And in that worship service, while we were singing, I even dug this out of my, I like how I did. I dug this out of my box of things that I keep. It's a little card that was in their pamphlet that night. And during that service, I kind of had the thought, what if God is using this anxiety and all of this cancer nonsense to pull me back to Him? Kind of like that little girl was getting dragged out of the ocean a few weeks ago. And I wrote this question to my friend and passed the card to her. And the question I wrote was, while we were singing, I thought, what if I were thankful for this anxiety and this cancer business because it has brought me closer to Him? And I'll spare you her response, but and that's kind of for the first time when things really started turning around, and I saw Psalm 121 in a really different light. Instead of getting my help from myself, I realized I could get my help from Him. I mean, He was the maker of heaven and earth, right? So after that, I continued having those 6 months checkups. A biopsy finally came back, not cancerous, but a little questionable. We probably need to get rid of this. Let's do another lumpectomy. Okay, let's do it. We did it. Did another six months round of checkups and another biopsy. I kind of started getting to the point where I thought, maybe I should just have a double mastectomy and be done with this. This is getting to be intense. Getting to be. So I knew, however, that I could not make the decision to pull that card myself, to pull that trigger. And I prayed a lot. Just being very honest with Him and saying, I can't make this decision. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. But if you need me to do this, if this is what I need, just like that little girl probably needed a break, then show me. Super hard to let go of my white knuckle grip of that decision. But I did have a really strong peace of mind in that 6 month period. At the next checkup, there were some more biopsies. And I headed off to Disney World with my godson and his family for Thanksgiving, and was literally at the base, standing at the base of Cinderella's castle when my phone rang. And it was the surgeon saying, hey, there's more of this tissue we need to get rid of. Let's do it. And so I said, hey, can I come into your office when I get back and talk with you? I think I want to jump ahead a few steps. I think I just want to go to this full-on mastectomy, so let's do this. So after talking with him, we made the decision to do that. Once that surgery was over with, the biopsies of all the tissue that was taken out of me showed about 70 to, I can't remember the exact number, 72% maybe, of that tissue was some sort of precancerous something. And I remember hearing that, my eyes swelling up, thinking, I'll be turned. He did it for a third time. Like, he used surgery to save me from disease for a third time. Wow. So as my faith in him grew and grew and grew, and got stronger and stronger and stronger, please know that I was not willing to accept help from any other human, though. Right? I mean, my sister's been a huge help through the years, and I've depended on her a lot, and she was one I could always freely go to. But do you want me to ask somebody to help me out to do something? No. So that particular surgery, I went ahead and started some reconstruction that involved some pretty intense moving around of skin and parts and things. And for about 2 months afterwards, I had very limited motion in my arms. Was supposed to. So really, I kind of became a Tyrannosaurus. Is that a T-Rex, right? Where you can move your arm like this? So literally for 2 months, I had to depend on people. If my trash needed to be taken out, I had to call someone and say, hey, would you come take my trash? And to say that was a humbling experience would be putting it mildly. However, it was a time when God was so gracious to me and showed me that even though I hadn't had the kids that I wanted and I didn't have the husband in the house and the stuff, that I had a family that He had created for me that was far beyond anything I could have asked or imagined. I look back at that time and I see, I see just how loved and cared for I was. I mean, I had a group of friends. That surgery took place over Thanksgiving. I had a group of friends who bought me a fake Christmas tree, artificial, and brought it into my house before the surgery, helped me decorate it, helped get the house ready, so that while I was sitting and recovering, I would have that to look at. Their husbands came and power washed my back porch and planted things there so I would have a beautiful place to sit and recover. A dear friend let me borrow a recliner, which I lovingly refer to as Big Blue, which I literally lived in for probably those 2 months. Other friends who are here, when I got home from the hospital and realized the recliner was too short for me to get into and out of easily, brought over a huge box to put it on so that I could do that. I came home from the hospital surrounded by handmade pillows that were created just to help me feel safe and comfortable in the car. I mean, every little thing that I could have possibly needed, He provided for me through the family that He created for me. It went on and on. You know, Alice took off a week of work to come be in the hospital with me. One of my college girls took off the next week of work, worked from my dining room table so that she could be there to take care of me. She has a lot of stories, so don't ask her. But we made it. All of you all surrounded me. I had friends bringing dinner and treats and people coming to walk with me as I did my little shuffle around the neighborhood to try to get my movement back. It was such a special time in life, a time when I really learned that I could depend on people. Not only could I depend on people, but He wanted me to. Just as He wants people to depend on me as well. So I think that street that I'd always looked at as a one-way, and I've got to take care of people in order to get their love and appreciation, turned into this beautiful two-way thing that I really, to say the least, was not anticipating with that experience. I would love to stand here and tell you guys that I'm free and clear of all this strong independence business, that it's never a problem anymore, that I get up every morning and hand the day over graciously to Him, walk through it strongly every day. That's not the case. As a matter of fact, this summer, and reflecting back on 2 of the hardest school years that I've ever taught through, I realized I went right back into this independent mode last spring. I pulled right back inside my shell. Didn't ask anybody for help. I will say, I'll say this, that when people did ask how's it going, I would say, not well. It's not going well. But couldn't really describe any more than that, other than it's not great, but we're going to get there. And I would typically follow it up with somebody, we're going to get there, it's fine. But because of all the things that I've been through in life, because of all of these dalliances and suffering with different medical issues, I've seen God work in ways that I never would have seen Him otherwise. I've had experiences with Him that not a lot of other people have. And I have learned to be grateful for them. I have learned that when I'm sitting in Big Blue or whatever it is, and I'm off on the sidelines, and God's pulled me over, that I can be grateful for it, that I can learn more about Him. And that I can learn that He truly is who I can depend on, that He truly is where my help comes from, that He truly does make sure my foot is not slipping, even though it might seem like it is.